special edition of Kudlow and Company from Washington, D.C.
All right, we're back. Dennis Gartman, Jerry Bowyer, Andy Bush, Gary Schilling. Dennis Gartman, Israel and Iran. I think that's been a big chunk of the oil rally in the month of June, and it has caused considerable problems in the stock market and elsewhere. What can you tell us? You like to write about this stuff in your morning letter, which is so informative. What do you hear? What's your surmise about this story?
I don't think there's really any legs to it at all. I think the probabilities of Israel doing anything untoward to Iran are very, very slim. I think this was really a warning by the United States to the Israelis. Hey, we're making progress. We have a problem with Ahmadinejad. We've got Laranjani coming in, probably the next person to be the next president. He's far more moderate. Please, whatever you do, don't rock the boat. I think that the odds of anything terribly untoward happening there are very, very slim.
And let me go around the horn on this. In terms of our Kudlow caucus, 9-3, stocks for the long run. Dennis, where are you on that?
In the long run, you got to be a 10, but in the short run being the next 6 months, we probably still have some downside because I'm actually I'm short in my own account, U.S. stocks. I'm long Brazil, I'm long Canada. But I think if you're talking about the next 5 years, of course. If you're talking about the next 10 years, of course, you want to own stocks. But for the next 6 months, probably, as Barat would say, not so much.
Not so much. What about you, Gary Schilling? What do you make of this? Do you want stocks for the long run, or are you going to stick with your bonds for the long run?
Well, as Keynes said, in the long run, we're all dead. And I still think that bonds are going to perform very well, and they have outperformed stocks.
Are you a Keynesian, Gary Schilling? Are you a Keynesian?
No, but he's great.
Quoting Keynes.
Hey, he's great to quote. He's great to quote. Yeah, he's so quotable.
But you're not really a Keynesian.
Here's the point, Larry.
You don't believe in high taxes and spending, do you?
No. Oh. But here's the point, Larry.
I'm just checking.
If you look at stocks, just remember, if you lose 50% on a stock, you have to make 100% to get even. And what that means is you're better off being out of markets during the down phases. Even if you give up some of the blow-off at the end of a rally, you're sitting there coolly on the sidelines waiting to get back in, or if you're like us with our accounts, you're short. But the bottom line is you're much better off than if you hold stocks up and down, ride them up, and then sweat it on the downside.
Josh, Jerry Bowyer, that sounded very complicated. I just like to buy the broad indexes. I like to own American business. I like to own a piece of America and just hold it. I just want to hold it for a long time. 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. That's my take.
Yeah. And the nice thing about American businesses is they don't just have to do business in America. That's a great thing. You know, there's some shock absorbers. There's some diversification. Look, for the short run, what I expect is that the second half of the year is going to be much, much, much better for the dollar than the first half of the year. I think Bernanke will wake up from his stupor. I think he'll get a spine transplant from somewhere. I think he fundamentally understands what's going on but needs some nerve. I think he's going to get it. I think Trichet is going to do his hike, and then he's going to figure out that they can't really afford any more hikes because their banking system is in worse trouble than our banking system. So I would not want to be on the negative side of the dollar. I think the dollar looks very undervalued, and that's a good sign for U.S. equities for the remainder of this year.
And Andy Bush, if the gold price stays around $900 an ounce, and I don't like that, it makes me very uncomfortable. It makes me worried about inflation. It does have a certain 70s feel to it. Do you stay in the commodity hard goods area, energy and commodities, which did outperform very nicely in the first quarter? Do you stay there, Andy, or do you venture off towards financials and consumers and tech?
Well, I think you have to be somewhat subjective in how you look at these things. I like certain areas of energy. Anything to do with electricity, I think, is it. Whether it's nuclear power or, fixing the grid in the United States or buying anything associated with electric cars. I like that story. It just seems to make a lot of sense to me. So that going forward is very good. You can start looking tactfully at some of the really beat down but good financial stocks. But you got to be very careful. Gary's right. You don't have to jump in to catch the bottom. You just got to catch that middle kind of 2/3 of these moves. And we're not quite there yet at hitting the bottom. So I'm a little bit cautious. I'm not as a bear as Gary is, but I think you're absolutely right. Long run, you have to be looking at these as very good buying opportunities in a lot of different sectors, financials, certain parts of it.
Dennis Gartman, I want to let you take us out briefly. How important is this election? We heard Jerry Bowyer talking about it at the top of the first segment. In your judgment, Dennis, for investors, how important is this election?
Two things. First of all, history shows us that under Democrats, stocks do very well. It's hard to believe, but it's absolutely true. I have my doubts about whether we're going to be able to do that under this Democrat. Here's a fellow who says, without equivocation, he intends to raise taxes. He's going to take off the cap on Social Security. My word, what kind of a signal is that going to be? So I'm very, very fearful. He is a very, very left-wing individual. And if we have a Senate that no longer has less than 60 votes amongst the Democrats so that you can override vetoes and get any kind of legislation through, and the few Republican senators that we have lose their power, I'm going to be very depressed. So is this a serious election? You bet it is.
Jerry Bowyer, how about the divided government scenario? McCain, Reid, Pelosi. Does that make you feel better about stocks, Jerry?
If it happens, yes. If John McCain understands how to win this election, which is drill, 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 it's not triangulation, it's not please love me, New York Times editorial board. It is get the oil out of the ground, into the refinery, and into the gas tank. If he gets that, he can win. That's divided government. That's a major bull story.
That's why he should choose Alaska Governor Sarah Palin.
Here, here.
She was on this program. She is drill, drill, drill. She said she's going to talk McCain into drilling in Anwar. She's smart. She's attractive. She's drill, drill, drill. And she doesn't like taxes. Gosh, what a thought.
What about the like?
Dennis Gartman, thank you ever so much. Angie Bush, Gary Schilling. Jerry's got one more debate to go, because up next, Washington Post columnist Steve Pearlstein says settle in for a recession. Jerry's going to fight him on that. We'll have a great debate. And as always, we are firm believers in the Kudlow Creed, which I am mending. Drill, drill, drill.
I believe free market capitalism is the best path to prosperity.